My name is Robin Cameron, she, her. I'm a visual artist and a professor at Lehigh, and I work in printmaking, ceramics, and cyanotypes, some film. When I was younger, I would make a lot of drawings when I was a kid, and I was always drawing. And my parents, they actually came into my kindergarten class, and they saw like all of the artwork on the wall. And my kindergarten teacher, she came up to my parents and was like, "You should put her in art classes like right away," because I was drawing little fingernails and eyelashes, and I was like noticing all the details on my stick figures that the other, kindergartners weren't noticing. So ever since then, I was super young. My parents really encouraged me. I was in every sort of like after school art class or art camp or like anything I could get a hold of. I was like drawing, and it was just the thing that I loved to do all the time. I like the flow state. I like, just being there, making these sorts of visual decisions without really thinking. Or if I am thinking, I'm able to solve sort of visual problems. And there's like a delight and a joy that comes from, using color, using form, having an idea, that you can actually execute, and then sharing that with people. I think it's really about creating meaning, and having that meaning sort of come through in the work. I have a lot of different series. I study printmaking, but I also, do ceramics. So, typically I work from ideas. So I start with a theme, and then I, create a body of work kind of around that theme. So past themes have included things like time. Right now I'm working on a series about power, but I've thought through identity, process, many different ideas through my work. Things like productive failure, and even just sort of plain abstraction, form. A lot of times it's about the idea for me, and so those ideas are really expansive. The other part of my practice that most people know me for is my books. So I've made a lot of books over the past, 10 years, 15 years, and, I studied graphic design. It made sense to kind of make artist books, and to become involved in printed matter and sort of have that be a platform to, then showing in galleries and sort of working alongside other artists. The artist book class is my dream class, and so that's why I'm really happy to teach it again. I taught it once at Cornell, and it was like a really amazing class, and so to be able to offer it to you guys too is really incredible. But all the classes, I think are really interesting for different reasons, and I have to kind of put on like a different headspace when I'm in web, learning about coding versus graphic design, talking about typography, to like printmaking, which is like really technical. So it's interesting because I have such a broad range of interests, and that like sort of really comes through in like what I've learned about over the years. You have to be so patient, and you have to really kind of meet the students where they're at and figure out a way to talk to them and to, sort of push them forward and encourage them in a way that doesn't feel oppressive. I feel like I have a real kind of hatred for authority, so then it's funny to like be in a position of authority. My dad, he taught high school science for like 30 years, and he's an incredible teacher. He can teach literally like anybody how to do anything, and not only just science in high school, but he's taught people how to water ski, and he's taught people how to do construction, and he's really just like a curious person. So I feel like sparking that curiosity and really trying to get that going in someone's mind, that's the key. But it's hard. You have to be patient. You have to like be there, and sometimes it doesn't work, and that's okay too. You keep going. Art school shouldn't be a place for like shutting those things down, right? It should be a really experimental place. And, I felt like the reason why I went to grad school. Like, I didn't know everything. I wanted to experiment with a lot of different mediums. I went through Columbia as a printmaker, but it was a very tiny program, and so you were open to, I took video classes, I took a sculpture class. There was ways of interacting with different media, and that was really different from other schools where you were really like matriculated into your discipline, and that's the only thing you could do. So I don't know, I think art is expansive and artists are expansive. You don't just have to do, like one thing. And I realized that you on your own have to find your own interests. And I discovered, conceptual art, I discovered Duchamp, and I felt like those things that I researched on my own, they were way more meaningful because I found them. It wasn't just someone, handing it to me and saying like, you need to learn this. I kind of followed my own interests. And I remember working at kind of this terrible full-time job, and I was like in my cubicle, and I would be reading like the Duchamp like biography, which was like 500 pages. And I would really try to learn, and I would try to use my time even though, I was supposed to be working. That was really like an education sort of for me. Before I went to Columbia, I would just sit on the internet and I would Google different galleries with different artists from, whatever lists that they would have. And that was sort of how I pieced together contemporary art. And it was fascinating because there are threads, because there are people who are friends, and I find that today in my own community, right? You see these threads, you see the people, you can kind of identify and like drop into these worlds. They were there. They just weren't recognized. I mean, I think a lot of times women have to fight to have that seat at the table, and so you really want to, be an equal, and it's difficult. I think a lot of times women were in the background. Maybe they were the assistants, or maybe they were making the meals, or stitching the clothes, or they were doing artistry, or they were making art, secretly, and they weren't showing it to anyone. They were showing it to themselves, just privately. And so they're there. It's just, how do we value things? Why do some artists or people, get more recognition than others? And, I think there is always ebbs and flows to a person's career, how they're interested and engaged in the community, and it changes over time. And I think also what's popular and what people are interested changes over time. A lot of the things that I'm interested in, like, maybe are pretty dorky, or like a lot of people wouldn't, want to even think about that. And that's okay too, I think it's now, in this moment, trying to kind of correct that and trying to have those, doors open, and for more people to be able to come in and be part of the canon, to be seen, to have their voices like heard. They're there. It's just, they just weren't talked about. Maybe I'll start with my friends because they're so amazing. There's, B. Parsons, Hayel Pizzanti, Mariah Deckinga. These are painters, these are drawers, these are people who I went to grad school with that I continue to have relationships with over time. And we talk about art, we talk about things, we talk about this being in the studio, we talk about our successes, our failures, and I think having that community of other like-minded women is really important. But in terms of like the larger like contemporary art world, I really love like Frances Stark, who we're talking about in class, Camille Enroe. I studied with like Kara Walker, who was incredible, Sarah Z, who was also amazing, Kiki Smith. Like, these are the people, the women that like I look up to, and I'm curious what they're making. I want to see their shows. I want to like pay attention to what they're gonna do next. I feel like I try to bring a lot of artist readings in class. We looked at Yetta Coter, Amy Silman, Angie Kiefer. There's a lot of women, there's a lot of people where you're like, you're cool, like you have something to say, and trying to pass that work along, I think, is really important. I see a pretty equal split in most classes, like male, female. Sometimes there's maybe more females. I mean, I think that the best art is Ungendered, there's actually this Eva Hess quote, that great art has no sex, right? It doesn't have to be one way or the other. It can involve your gender, but, I think great art doesn't, it just transcends all of that. It has meaning, it has purpose, it has something that inspires you, like, outside of that. And I don't know, I wish it could be more equal. I think that's like the frustration. Definitely like looking at faculty, in all the different schools I've taught at and trying to see, is there an equal split? Is there, representation of all different, types of people? So that's important as, a student to see that as well. Sadly, I do, and it's hard because you'd think in like 2022, like, right, that we're in a place where it wouldn't put you at a disadvantage. But maybe the one story I could tell is, I went to grad school, and when I was at grad school, it was the equal split in our class, male, female. When the grad show came along, this is like a big deal, right? We have a big show, and the hope is that you get a gallery in New York. That's like the goal, right? Of having all these people come, and so, we had our grad show, and there was something like, I don't know, there was maybe like 20 artists total, 10 male, 10 women, something like that. And out of those, only 5 people got galleries. And out of the 5, I was the only woman that got offered representation. And that was, probably 6 or 7 years ago. Since then, my gallery's closed, and probably maybe 2, maybe 3 of the guys still have representation. But that just maybe goes to show the odds, right? Like, you're at a top tier school, you're in the top part of that, top tier, and even if you work hard, even if you do all this stuff, like, it kind of doesn't matter. So sometimes it becomes a numbers game, right? It becomes about how do you find that path, right? With that, difficult numbers of like, you're in the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, and when you really think about it, like, the artists that get to just be in their studio and make work, it's a very small number, right? And that's okay too. Like, people can carve out a career for themselves, in many different ways, right? And that doesn't mean it's better or worse. It's just a different way to live as an artist. I feel like it's really about, in any way, giving people opportunities, right? Whether it's monetary, whether it's social, exhibition space, I think just having people know that there are opportunities out there, it helps you to continue, right? Like, I think a lot of times when artists get discouraged, it's because you feel like doors are closed for you. I'm hoping that things can self-correct and that there can just, be opportunities for everyone. And I think too, like, rejection is kind of part of the DNA of being an artist. And you sort of have to be okay with that. It's just gonna be a matter of fact. That's just the way that it goes. You apply for a lot of things, you try out for things, but things are gonna fail. You're gonna get rejected, and that's okay too, right? Like, you just keep going. It doesn't have to be the end, right? And I think learning that is a really important lesson. I think just keep going, keep making your work. Eventually someone's gonna catch on. And, it may take a long time, and that's okay, right? If it's something you enjoy doing, just keep doing it, It takes time, and there's usually a plan that you can't foresee, right? Have your dreams, have your thoughts, have your goals, but, just keep doing it.